Hello, guys. Okay, so we are covering 7.2, which is multiply monomial by polynomial. And we talked about, or you watched a pre-teach video that taught you about the area model or using the distributive property. I'll re-show both here, okay? We want to make sure that we remember the exponent product rule, which is x to the a times x to the b, means that I'm going to do x to the a plus b. When we multiply and it has the same base, that means we add the exponents. Okay, so to re-show the distributive property here, we take the x and we're distributing it to everything inside. So that means I'm doing x times x plus x times 4, which gives me x squared plus 4x. And we always want this written in standard form, okay? Answers in correct standard form. All right, so this was the distributive property. Now we're doing the area model. And you can choose which form you would like to use. The area model, I'm going to be honest, is nice when you get into your trinomials, but you don't have to. You can just do the distributive property. Actually, for this one, it is just the distributive property. I'm sorry. The area model doesn't apply to this. I was thinking about your lesson for next period. I'm sorry, not next period, but tomorrow. You're not going to do the area model at all. You're just going to use the distributive property. This is what happens when you think too far ahead. Yep, we're just doing the distributive property here. So I'm just doing 5m cubed times 3m squared plus 5m cubed times m plus, when I distribute, 5m cubed times negative 7. Oh, and I need to remember that's a negative m. I made that boo-boo. That's a negative m right there. We got to remember that. Actually, that part because I make some notations in that. Plus 5m cubed times negative m. So now when we're looking at this, we multiply. It's got the same base. So I'm going to multiply the coefficients, which are the 5 and the 3, and end up with 15. And then I'm going to add the exponents. 3 plus 2 is 5. So we end up with 15m to the 5th. Now I have the same base again. Remember that exponent is understood to be a 1, and this is understood to be a negative 1. So I'm doing 5 times negative 1, which gives me a negative 5m to the 4th. And then we have 5 times negative 7, so that's a negative 35m to the 3rd. And this is my final answer in correct standard form. Okay, moving right along. Jumping down to number 10. This is where we have several variables that we're dealing with at one time. Okay, so again, I'm distributing. So I'm doing 3xy times x squared plus 3xy times xy plus 3xy times y squared. And that's going to give me, now with this, I'm just like, remember, when it's xy, that means these have a coefficient of 1. This has a, not a coefficient, sorry, exponent of 1. The coefficient here is a 1. So got exponents of 1. The coefficient, which is the number in front of the letter, is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. X to the 1 times x squared, that's going to give me x to the 3rd because I do 1 plus 2. There's no y to combine with, so I just rewrite it down. I just write it down. I just bring it down. Plus, now I'm doing the 3 times xy. There's no coefficient. It's understood to be a 1. So I'm doing 3 times 1, which is 3. Again, these exponents are 1s. These are 1s as well. So I'm doing 1 plus 1. So that's going to be x squared, y squared, plus exponents are 1s. Y squared has a coefficient of 1. So it's just 3 times 1 is 3. X, there's not an x to multiply with. So I just write down x. Y to the 1 times y squared. That's going to be 1 plus 2, which is y to the 3rd power. Remember, for correct standard form, you want it to be in alphabetical descending order, which this is, because x to the 3rd, x comes before y in the alphabet, and x to the 3rd is first, then x squared, and then x to the 1. Okay, next example, number 11. Again, we're distributing. We've got multiple variables here. So I'm going to have 5r squared s squared times negative 2r squared plus 5r squared s squared times 3rs plus 5r squared s squared times negative 4s squared. Spacing too big right here. Okay, so now we multiply. So I've got 5 times negative 2, so that's going to give me a negative 10 r squared. So that's going to give me r to the 4th, because 2 plus 2 is 4. And then I just bring down the s squared. Plus, now I'm doing 5 times 3, so that's going to give me 15. Then I'll look at my r's again. This is understood to have a 1. So I have r to the 3rd, s to the 3rd, because they both have a 1, and then this is both 2. So 2 plus 1 is 3. Plus, 5 times negative 4. So that's going to be a negative 20 r squared s to the 4th, or you could have minus 20. Both of those are correct. And here is my final answer in correct standard form. Okay, moving right along. Let's jump down to number 15. Okay, this is where we're adding in. Yes, we have to multiply, but now we're simplifying. We have to simplify it all the way down and make sure that it's in correct standard form. So first things first, I'm going to distribute. So I'm going to have negative 2x. So that's going to give me a negative 6x squared plus, because that's a negative 4. So we have a negative 2x times a negative 4x. That's going to be a positive, not 4x, but negative 2x times negative 4. So that's going to be a positive 8x plus 7x, which now I combine my like terms, which is the 8x and the 7x. So we have negative 6x squared plus 15x as my final answer. Excuse me. This next type of problem, this is the first kind of trip curveball that you can throw. Remember, you're distributing here. But that's a negative 2w. So if you need to rewrite this to pay attention to, plus negative 2w. So you know that is what you're distributing to both. So I'm doing 5w times negative 7w. That's going to be a negative 35w squared, because we have to distribute. And then I've got 5w times 3. So that's going to give you plus 15w. Then we have negative 2w times 13. So that's going to give you negative 26w. Plus, that's a negative times a negative. So that's going to be a positive 18w cubed. Now, we have to combine our like terms. Any like terms that we have, which are 15W, and negative 26W. Now, when I'm writing my final answer, we have to write it in correct standard form. So I have to look for the highest exponent, which is the 18W cubed. So that is going to be written first. So I'm going to combine my like terms and rewrite it in the correct order at the same time. 18W cubed, that's a positive, so I keep it a positive. The 35W squared is a negative, so I write that as minus 35W squared. And then I'm looking at my math here. So 15 negative 27, that means I'm going to subtract, and I end up with a negative 11W as the final answer. Okay, next page. So we're going to jump down to number 23 real quick. Okay, so we're distributing. So I distribute the negative 2r. So I have negative 2r to the fourth minus, actually that's going to become a plus 12r to the third minus 12r. Then we have plus 4r to the third, because I just bring that down. Here's where the tricky part is, and this is why I chose this problem. This is minus. That's the same as saying plus negative 1. So I'm distributing a negative 1 to both. So we're going to have negative 1 times 5r to the fourth. So that's going to give me minus 5r to the fourth. Negative 1 times positive 10r, so that's going to be minus 10r. And now we combine our like terms. Okay, I have 2r to the fourths. I've got to follow my integer rules. So that's going to become negative 7r to the fourth. And I'm looking for the thirds, r to the thirds. And that's going to give me plus 16r to the third. And then I'm looking for r squareds. There are none. So now, that's negative right there. I'm doing the last one, which is negative 12r and negative 10r. And that's going to give me negative 22r. There's a lot of details that you have to pay attention to so that you don't get the wrong exponent or the wrong integer sign. Okay, next example. This is following order of operations. Okay, according to order of operations, you have to work whatever inside parentheses first. Okay, so I've got to look. I can't simplify these because they're not like terms. So that means I'm now first going to distribute the negative 5. That's a negative 5 that's being distributed. So I'll rewrite everything else. So I have 4b, open bracket, 2a squared minus 15ab, because I distributed, plus 10b squared, close bracket, because once I distribute, the parentheses are gone, plus 29ab squared. And now we distribute the 4b. And that's going to give me 8a squared b minus, because I'm distributing here, then I distribute here. So 4 times 15, that's minus 60 ab squared, because there's no a, but the b, that's b times b gives you b squared, plus 40 b to the third, plus 29 ab squared. All right, now I'm looking to see if there's any like terms. Okay, my only like terms I see are the AB squared. Okay, so now when I'm writing my final answer, I have to put it in standard form. So I've got to look for A is going to be first. A's highest exponent is A squared. So I'm going to have 8A squared B. Now I'm combining my like terms. So I go over to the handy dandy calculator and I'm doing negative 60 plus 29, which gives me a negative 31. So I have negative 31 AB squared plus 40 B to the third power. And there's my final answer. Okay. For this next one, for 25, I'm not going to work it all the way through, but I'm going to make sure that you remember you're finding the area of a trapezoid. Remember that the formula is 1/2 1/2 open parentheses B1 plus B2 times the height. What you need to remember is we'll let this one be B1, this is B2, and this is your height. And remember, 1/2 can also be written as 0.5 if you want. Okay, and then you plug in your numbers. I guess I can go ahead and write that down, and then you can simplify from there. So we would have 8x squared plus 3x plus 2x cubed minus x all times 4x squared. And you can either multiply by the 0.5 first, or you can multiply by the 4x squared first. Go ahead and finish this. I'm going to go ahead and multiply by the 4x squared first. So that's going to give me, because I could also just take and divide by 2 at the end. Let's see what ends up happening. So we have 32x to the 4th plus 12x to the 3rd plus 8x to the 5th minus 4x to the 3rd. And that's all divided by 2. The reason that I changed to divide by 2 is they're all even numbers. So it's very easy to just divide them by 2. So we get now, I'm going to rewrite this in the correct order. So I'm going to do the 8 divide. I'm going to do this first because x to the 5th is the biggest exponent. So I'm going to end up with 4x to the 5th. That took care of that one. Then I'm looking at this one. So that's plus 16x to the 4th. It's only the coefficient that I'm dividing. Notice that. Plus 6x to the 3rd minus 2x to the 3rd. And there is the final answer of what the area equals. Okay, last question, 26. Okay, the reason that I'm wanting to make sure I do this is because it wants the shaded region, which means I'm going to do the area of the big minus the area of the small, or area of the outside minus the area of the inside, whichever way you want to think about it. I do big minus small. Well, you've got to remember for a rectangle, that means we do length times width. So you can find each one and then simplify or plug them in. So I'm going to have 6x times 8x minus 1 minus 2x times 5x plus 3. And now we distribute. So I'm going to have 48x minus 6x. Oops, that's 48x squared. Pay attention to that. That's a good way to make a mistake. And I'm going to leave this right here as subtraction, because remember, I'm doing what's inside the parentheses, the brackets first. So minus 10x squared plus 6x. Now I distribute this negative, or I think about it as subtraction. So I have, so I can rewrite this as plus negative 10x squared plus negative 6x. So that means I'm going to have 38x squared minus 12x. This is the area of the shaded. Remember, if you have any questions, make sure that you stop the video and replay it or come and ask me. Have a great day.